Hi. Many of us use slides every day in our classrooms with the goal of teaching content to students. We've created slide decks that are full of information, they're fun to look at, they have cute themes and elements. Our students seem engaged, then why does it not seem to stick? I'd like to propose that we are making crucial mistakes that are preventing students from comprehending and recalling the lessons we're teaching. Today, I will show you 1. What makes a good slide? 2. Examples of good and bad slide design. And 3. The comprehension benefits for the learner and the content creator that will make learning stick. The purpose of the slide is to help the learner gather new information. They must be able to select the most important information, organize it, and integrate it with the information they already know. This is the process we call encoding. So first you must ask yourself, do I need a slide for this particular information? If you feel that a slide is necessary, we must address the elements of the slide that make the student learning most successful. But first, what happens when we present unnecessary information? Let's talk about cognitive overload. Traditional slides with headings, words, images, and extra fun graphics are pretty common. We put them on the board and then we talk about the information, often rereading what is projected. This means that our brain is trying to take in words visually and orally. Hall states that it's basically a traffic jam on the words-based part of the brain. You have too much coming in one channel, and as a result, you compete with too many cars on the road, and nothing gets through effectively. We process all words in the same brain space. When your slide has words and you're talking to the learner, they have to pick where to focus, and they can become overloaded, like the left side of this image. The right side of our brain processes visual information. The best learning will happen when traffic is moving in all lanes. So what do those slides look like? This is called the assertion evidence slide. There are 3 main elements that I'd like to talk to you about for you to put into your own slides. First, the top is not a topic. It is a sentence. A full sentence is easier for our brains to grasp when we're learning new information. It also is clear and concise. In the center here, you would see a visual image. This piece of evidence can be a diagram, a photograph, a graph, any kind of visual representation that's going to help connect the learner to the main information. And then finally, the third component is the actual oral presentation that you're giving as your learners are engaging in the slide. Have you ever left a glass on the kitchen counter at night to remind you to, water the plants before you leave for work in the morning? This seemingly random object, the glass, became a visual image that you connected to a piece of text, which in this case was the task of watering the plants that you told yourself to do the night before. By intentionally selecting visual images on our slides, we can help students make those connections to content. Graphics with spoken words form representations in working memory that select and integrate verbal and nonverbal information. Think of how many times a picture has triggered a memory or a fact that you've learned. This is one we're all guilty of, I think. So we think that we're making a list of important information. For a learner new to the content that we're teaching, when we use bullet points, we can often overwhelm them and overwhelm the language part of their brain. There are 2 reasons why this happens. First, the learner is trying to read the bullets and listen to the speaker. Second, the learner is trying to knit together the connections between the bullet points and the main concept, and this leads to, you guessed it, a strain on cognitive load. So in second grade social studies, we learn about natural, human, and capital resources. This is a new concept for them. Let's examine this typical slide. It definitely looks typical. We have the title at the top, a definition, a list of words telling things that might be natural resources, and then some cute images. I would definitely want my students to connect to the picture of the sand and water and realize it was two things in one. Here's the problem with this slide. First, Garner and Alley state that text in a text box that is read aloud by the instructor produces redundancy and could potentially increase cognitive load. Second, your students might not even be able to read the words on the slide. For my second graders, this would be way too hard for some of them. So not only are there words and my voice, but now they're not even sure what the words are. This is no good for them. Third and finally, the images I selected are very random and not connected, and they may not help the students connect back to this information later. This slide teaches the exact same concept. Now I have the concept as the main sentence. I chose one image of a nature scene that I could use to reinforce the sentence. So I chose to label 4 of the resources that I see. This will lead us to a discussion on other natural resources that they see in the picture and also allow my students to talk about related resources. For example, in the picture we have sheep, but they're going to quickly connect that to cows or pigs, and that's going to connect them to growing wheat, growing corn, and we'll be able to have a great conversation. Now when the students need to recall information about natural resources, they may get this image in their mind, and they're going to much more successfully be able to have that conversation or explain what natural resources are. Here's one more example using the topic of capital resources. So the slide on the left is really cute. It even has the images on a little computer screen, but there's kind of too much going on. The slide on the right provides a definition and an example, which is an overhead shot of a factory. This can start the discussion on all of the elements that were the bullet points on the first slide. Students are going to have to collaborate with each other, use their prior knowledge, and actually do some thinking to come up with those same kinds of information that in the first slide I just handed to them. All right, so just in case you aren't sold on rethinking your presentations, I want to finish up by giving you a couple of benefits to adjusting your presentations. First, we'll talk about the learners. So learners will experience increased comprehension and recall of information. We're kind of back to that whole idea of tying that string around your finger to remember something, except it becomes even more powerful with the right visuals. Second, let's talk about the content creators, which oftentimes in our elementary is us. So Garner states that the act of creating presentation slides itself is an exercise in learning that can impact the presenter's comprehension of the content because it prompts the presenter to select important information, organize it, and communicate it using their own words. So as an educator, I find this is a great challenge, but also it's awesome, really, to know and understand what I'm specifically teaching, because we all know that especially certain times of year, it feels like we have a lot more we think we're supposed to teach than time. So to be able to selectively create the content that's going to help my kids be the most successful feels really good. Finally, when this structure is put into students' hands, the payoff's even greater. Students who incorporate image-based representation, like drawings or diagrams, are more likely to be able to call upon that information and answer higher order thinking questions afterwards. I feel like we all know that when we teach something, we tend to learn it better. And, we talk in our class, I tell my students they're peer coaches. They can coach their classmates through things. They just have to do it with words, not with their hands. The ability for them to create powerful slides as they create presentations is also going to increase their learning. So by adjusting your slides to fit the assertion evidence format with a sentence, a visual representation, and a verbal explanation, you can help make it stick for your students too. Here are some of the references that I used and the other references. Always a quick shout out to Slidesmania and Unsplash for the presentation backgrounds. And thank you for listening.